Okay, hey, Blake Rudis here with F64 Academy and F64 Elite, and today I am joined by Jim Welninski. We're recording a course together in my studio, so I figured while I have him here, we're gonna play a little game. Do you wanna play a little game?
This is what you got me up early for?
Yes. It's only 5 o'clock in the morning.
All right. We'll play a game.
All right, let's do this. Okay, Jim, so this game doesn't have a name, all right? But what we're gonna do...
So it's gonna be fun, though.
It's the nameless game.
Okay.
But we're gonna bust some myths. We're gonna bust some myths that we often hear when we're on workshops when we say the word artist.
Oh, this is my favorite game.
Okay, so the rules are simple.
I'm glad you got me up now.
The rules are simple. We're gonna put a myth up there.
Okay.
And once that myth is up there, the first person to hit this button gets to answer it.
Okay.
Okay. Simple?
Yeah.
Think you can handle that?
I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Okay. Not yet.
Oh.
Yeah, you have to read the whole myth
Now?
first.
Okay.
No. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Artist is a title that has to be earned or accredited. Ah! I got it. My hand was there first. Okay, so I'm really glad that I hit the button on this one because I wanted to be a doctor, but I realized that it was going to be a very long and laborious process to get accredited as a doctor. All right? So instead, I went to school for art. Okay? Because...
Okay.
As I see it, an artist doesn't need to be accredited, right? You know, as an artist, it's not a title, it's a mindset. It's a way of life. It's a state of being.
Totally.
So, I still did get my degree in art.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, I spent a lot of time in the military before I actually started doing it. And actually, a lot of people that I went to school with, unfortunately, are no longer really working in the arts.
Right.
So, it just goes to show you that being an artist, it is a mindset shift, because even if you do get accredited for it, it doesn't really help you in any way, shape, or form, because
No.
it really is all about the mindset.
Right. And I always say that artist isn't a job or a title, it's who you are. And the world is filled with people who never went to school and weren't classically trained that were great artists. Can you name some?
Yeah, Van Gogh, Picasso, Frida Kahlo, Paul Gauguin, all of those.
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
Awesome, right? And so you don't need to have formal education. Your education's on you, but all you need is an artistic sensibility. And being an artist is how you see the world. It's the way you were made. And so I think you actually have a responsibility to develop that gift and give it back to the world, because the world needs it.
It does. All right. So, second myth.
Yeah.
I can't become more creative. You got it.
Did I kill it?
It's yours, man. You got it. I'm just going to give it a rest.
So I think that is a total myth. Your creativity is on you. And if you want to be more creative, what you need to do is you need to fill your hopper with creative stuff and consume as much artwork from other mediums as you can. Watch movies, see plays, view sculptures, go look at paintings, go to museums. And all of those things, if you allow yourself to feel the passion of another artist, that gives you fuel for your own work, right? And then what ends up happening is you end up knowing yourself. And when you know yourself, then you can reach inside and become more creative, because you're drawing on who you are. And what's the key thing, though?
Practice and experimentation. Just like doctors.
Yeah.
Okay. Doctors, they practice.
That's
just
true.
Like
they call it a medical practice.
The doctor that was just sitting here, he practices, right?
Yeah.
Just like a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or whatever. You have to practice, you have to experiment, and more importantly, you have to fail.
Right. Give yourself permission to fail. It's okay, because your greatest lessons are in your failures, for
Absolutely.
sure.
And I can give you a story on that real quick.
Awesome.
So when I was in school, I was told, I say this a lot in a lot of my classes, but I was told to make a good painting and a bad painting. So I purposefully had to make a painting that was supposed to be a failure. And and that's what the assignment was. And it's funny because I was always very trying to be classically trained with perfect detail in all my paintings. So I decided to do more of like a Jasper Johns, Jackson Pollock, because at the time I considered those failures.
Oh boy.
So when I combined them together, what I found was that I actually found a deep-seated passion for that type of art. And my whole painting style changed from that day on to be, and I developed more of a abstract type.
Because you were trying to make a bad piece of art.
Because I was trying to make a bad piece of art.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
And that failure ended up being my success, and then that carried on into everything that I did from every piece then after.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm always working, and I have, I don't know, 200,000 photos in my library, and have published maybe 50.
Wow.
So, or 100 maybe. What's the success to failure ratio there? Quick.
Pretty high.
Yeah, right? Nobody ever tells you that. That's the thing about photography, though, that you never see anybody's failures, and there are way more of them than there are successes. So if you want to be more creative, fill your hopper with creative stuff and work more, practice, and get to know yourself, because when you know yourself, then you're drawing on your own deep well of creativity.
I agree 100%. I'm glad you got that one.
I'm glad I got up early.
Ooh, this is one of my favorites, Jim.
Okay.
Better places make better photos.
Oh. Hey, I didn't even get a chance.
Well, I'm reading it, so I got an advantage.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so the place doesn't make the photo. You do, all right? Art is internal. Art's something that happens inside of you. So that doesn't necessarily mean that an external environment can create great work. You create great work from the external environment that you live in, from you exposing yourself internally to those that are even in the external place, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know it's kind of like a metaphysical way of looking at it, but it's true. I've been to the greatest places on the planet to photograph, and I've made some really bad photos from it just because I was assuming that place was going to create the art. Perfect example for this is it's almost like the better the place that you're in is almost a handicap. Okay. So I lived in California for like 6 years, 5 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's when I picked up a camera for the first time, because I was surrounded by beaches and beauty and gorgeousness. But because of a military move, I moved from California to Missouri. And I got into this deep rut of creativity because I was like, well, here I go from beaches and all this glorious stuff in the Bay Area of California, and now I'm by a river. So it actually became really challenging for me to take a good photograph, but I think it was that challenge that has actually helped me become a better photographer and artist, because I've had to work a lot harder in order to make work rather than being a beautiful place.
So I actually give students in my black and white class an exercise the first week. They think they're going to get this really cool exercise on how to make these black and white photos. And I say, no, take your camera and go into your bathroom. And you can't move anything. You can't turn any lights on. You can't photograph running water. And you can't come out until you produce 20 photographs. And you have to do it all in one session. And they're like, oh no. But when they come back they can hardly wait to show the photos off, because you run out of the rules really quick. And you're forced to rely on your inner sense of what's good and what's bad. So being in a bathroom is a pretty bad place to be if you have to produce photographs, but they do it, and it's awesome.
That's a pretty crappy assignment.
Oh, wow. Got a snare drum?
All right, Jim. Myth number 4. I need to be inspired to make great work.
Got it. So this is not true. If you're not working, you're never going to be inspired, because inspiration comes from work, not the other way around. So what I always say is that an artist at rest stays at rest, and an artist who works gets more inspiration because you're working through your artistic rut. If you're not doing anything, nothing's going to happen. Whereas if you're working, then you're going to be inspired, because your muse, if you have a muse, doesn't care how tired you are or how low your checkbook balance is or what else is going on in your life. Your muse cares about work. And if you work, I guarantee you your muse is going to show up, right? So no work, no inspiration. You're going to keep doing exactly what you've been doing. You think you're going to be sitting on the couch and you're going to get inspired, and all of a sudden you're going to go and turn on Photoshop after 6 months and you're going to go, oh, I got to turn on Photoshop, and I don't remember how to turn it on, and how do I make my computer work? That's what's going to happen.
Right, and I can back that up by my accredited degree in fine art.
Okay.
When I was in school, I had a studio, and in my studio I had a room that I share with 2 other artists. And I'd be in that studio. I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go into my studio, and I'd be in that studio from 6 until usually midnight or so. Mm-hmm. And
it's a long time.
Now I still had classes in between, but my staging point wasn't my room. My staging point was my studio. And even my friends and family knew to find me in my studio and not my room. I went to my room to sleep. That was it. And even though I had my inspiration ruts when I was in school, I was still able to push through them because I was constantly surrounding myself with art and other artists that would help me through that rut as well. And I was working through it. I was making little drawings and doing all these little diagrams and silly things to just get me moving through that rut. The other artists, on the other hand, that didn't spend much time in the studio and would use their room as their base camp, so to speak, it showed in their work when they had an inspiration rut. And if that rut lasted, 4 months, that's a whole semester.
Yep.
And that shows in your grades and stuff. So that was just something I can bring back from, the art school days, if you want to go back there.
Yeah, and we also talked earlier about how your brain can get in the way sometimes when you're in a rut and you start overthinking things. And, don't think that because you're an experienced artist, you're not going to get in a rut. You will. I just came out of one, so I know. And my brain was like in overdrive instead of me just relaxing and working. So it's all about the work. Work, 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 and you will be inspired.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes.
All right, Jim. Myth number 5. We're landing the plane. Do you want to read this one?
Yes. You can't create great art without the best tools.
I made you read it because I wanted to hit the button.
See?
The art of distraction.
You tricked me.
Art of distraction. Okay. So here's the deal. Van Gogh was a very poor artist.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the best brushes. He didn't even have the best pigments. He'd kind of like beg, borrow, and steal for the pigments that he could get to create his paintings. And he's one of the most well-known painters in this day. Maybe
you think people wanted to know, hey, what kind of brushes do you use?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Are they horsehair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody cares. At
No.
the end of the day, what people care about is the resulting art.
Yep.
They don't know what tools you used, right?
Nope.
You can use any tool. They help. I will say that some of the best tools do help, especially in photography. Having really good filters does help. But are they necessary to make great work? No.
Yeah, it'll get some of the process out of your way.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with understanding the process, and there's nothing wrong with fighting through it a few times. Then you know why you need the tools.
Right.
Because there's a lot of tools out there that you don't need.
And we started with a lot of very substandard cameras that I know for a fact we still to this day look back at that artwork and say, wow, look what I created.
Yeah, I mean, if you give me a Polaroid, look at that.
Oh, a Polaroid. Thanks, Jim. That was great.
Aren't you glad you got me up early?
I am, and I'm glad that was number 5 because I can't even read our screen in front of us anymore.
I'm over here.
Like, hi, Jim.
So this just goes to prove to you that you don't need all the things you think you need to be an artist. What you need is the desire. You need an artistic mindset. You need to fill your hopper with stuff that's going to inspire you. And you need to just look around at your surroundings and dig inside, because that's where art comes from in the first place.
Absolutely.
And I think in short, what that really means is you kind of need to adopt a poetic sensibility about the world and about life, because that's what being an artist is all about, isn't it?
Well, I think that, and there is some extreme power in labeling, okay? So if you label, you enable. And if you label yourself an artist, you enable yourself to be one.
Yeah.
And if you avoid the label of an artist, you're not going to enable yourself to work through these things, and you're just going to constantly be stuck with that I'm just a photographer.
Right.
You've got to label yourself an artist. You've got to want to be it. You've got to want to share it. You've got to want to become it.
And I'm betting that you are an artist, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be watching this. So say it right now. I'm an artist. Own it.
Jeez.
Evidence.
Wow. I'm going to be seeing stars for days. Thanks, Jim. That was great.